The train lurched through the fog-shrouded valleys of the Czech countryside, its rhythm a relentless echo of Mateo's fracturing heart. Beside him, a stranger's hand brushed his accidentally, or was it? Sending a spark that cut through the numbness he'd carried across an ocean. "I've been running from ghosts my whole life," the man whispered, his breath warm against Mateo's ear. "But you look like the one I finally want to chase." Mateo froze, the words landing like a stone in still water, rippling back to the life he'd fled in Seattle. He was 30 miles from Prague, but in that cramped compartment, with the scent of rain-damp wool and cheap coffee hanging in the air, he felt 1,000 miles from the man he'd been just weeks ago. The stranger, Elias, he'd learned over shared glances and stilted small talk, leaned back, his blue eyes catching the gray light filtering through the window, holding Mateo's gaze just long enough to make escape impossible. It had started in the dim glow of a Capitol Hill bar, the kind where the craft beers flowed like confessions and the jukebox played indie folk anthems about lost loves. Mateo nursed a hazy IPA, staring at the condensation on his glass, replaying the voicemail from Alex that had gutted him 2 nights before. "I can't do this anymore, Matt. It's not you. It's the lies I told myself." Lies. That's what their 3 years had boiled down to. Stolen kisses in Pioneer Square alleys, weekend getaways to the San Juans where they'd whispered futures under starlit skies, all crumbling under the weight of Alex's secret affair with a coworker from the tech firm downtown. Mateo had always known he was the cautious one, the graphic designer who sketched logos for startups by day and dreamed of something bolder by night. Maybe a novel or a life unscripted by Seattle's perpetual drizzle. Alex was the fire. Charismatic, a rising star in software engineering, with that easy laugh that drew crowds at parties. They'd met at a Pride afterparty in 2022, bodies slick with summer sweat, dancing to Charlie XCX under rainbow lights strung across the Fremont Bridge. It felt like destiny then. 2 gay kids from fractured families finding solidity in each other. Mateo's parents, Italian immigrants who'd settled in Tacoma, had never quite understood his phase, as his mother called it with a sigh over Sunday ragu. Alex's folks in Spokane were worse, Bible Belt holdouts who prayed away his orientation until he stopped calling home. But destiny, Mateo learned, was just a pretty word for temporary. The affair came to light during a routine scroll through Alex's phone, late-night texts from Jay, graphic enough to sear into Mateo's retinas. "Miss your mouth on me after that board meeting," one read. Mateo confronted him in their Queen and apartment, the Space Needle twinkling mockingly outside the floor-to-ceiling windows they'd splurged on last year. Alex didn't deny it. "It's complicated, babe. Jordan gets me in ways. I don't know. Complicated. As if love were an algorithm to debug." The breakup was a blur of shattered mugs and slammed doors, Mateo packing a duffel with trembling hands while Alex hovered, offering half apologies that tasted like ash. "We can work through this. Therapy." But Mateo saw the truth in Alex's eyes. Relief, masked as regret. He left that night, crashing on his best friend Lena's couch in Ballard, her arms around him as he sobbed into the weave of her throw blanket. Lena, a barista-slash-poet with tattoos of Audre Lorde quotes snaking up her arms, listened without judgment. "Fuck him, Mateo. You're the whole damn story, not a plot twist." In the weeks that followed, Seattle turned suffocating. Every corner held a ghost. The coffee shop where they'd shared their first latte. The gym where Alex's laugh had echoed off the mirrors during spin class. Mateo threw himself into work, redesigning branding for a queer-owned bookstore in Capitol Hill, but the colors blurred on his screen, his sketches turning jagged, like his thoughts. Sleep evaded him, chased by dreams of hands that pulled away just as they touched. One rainy Tuesday, staring at a blank canvas in his studio apartment, the one he'd kept because leaving felt like admitting defeat, Mateo booked a one-way ticket to Europe, Prague, chosen on a whim from a dog-eared guidebook Lena had lent him. "Why not?" she'd said, hugging him at Seattle-Tacoma. "Run toward something, not just away." The flight to Frankfurt was a haze of in-flight movies and mediocre pretzels, Mateo sketching strangers' faces in his notebook to distract from the ache in his chest. From there, a connecting train to Vienna. Then this leg. The sleek Eurocity Express to Prague, his backpack stuffed with dog-eared paperbacks and a sketchpad that hadn't seen ink since Seattle. He'd chosen a window seat in second class, hoping the motion would lull him into forgetting. Instead, it delivered Elias. Elias slid into the seat across the narrow aisle just as the train pulled out of Vienna Hauptbahnhof, his duffel thumping against Mateo's knee in apology. Sorry, mate. Crowded as hell out there. British accent? No. American. Laced with something Midwestern. Soft around the edges like fresh-baked cornbread. He was early 30s, maybe, with sun-bleached blonde hair cropped close, a day's stubble shadowing a square jaw, and arms corded from God, what? Construction? Rock climbing? He wore a faded flannel over a white tee, jeans worn at the knees, and scuffed boots that spoke of trails hiked, not boardrooms conquered. Mateo caught himself staring, then looked away, heat creeping up his neck. Flirting with strangers wasn't his style anymore. Not after Alex. They exchanged nods at first, the universal language of reluctant travelers. Elias pulled out a worn paperback, Kerouac's On the Road, and Mateo's sketchpad emerged almost by reflex. He drew the passing landscape. Terraced vineyards giving way to dense pine forests, the Vltava River a silver thread in the distance. Elias glanced over once, twice. Artist? He asked, voice low to not disturb the dozing couple across from them. Designer, mostly. You. Mateo kept his eyes on the page, pencil scratching lightly. Teacher. High school English back in Ann Arbor. Escaping for a sabbatical. Elias stretched his legs, his boot nudging Mateo's again. This time lingering a beat too long. You from the States too? Seattle. The word tasted foreign now, like a city he'd visited once. Rainy paradise, huh? I'm more of a lakes and autumn leaves guy. Elias's smile was easy, disarming. The kind that invited stories without demanding them. They fell into conversation then, halting at first, then flowing like the tracks beneath them. Elias talked about grading essays on The Great Gatsby in a classroom overlooking Huron River, the kids' debates on the American dream hitting too close to home. Mateo shared snippets of Seattle's tech boom, how it chewed up dreamers like him and spat out polished husks. As the train crossed into Czech territory, the sun dipped low, painting the compartment in amber hues. Elias offered a flask. Bourbon from a Kentucky distillery tour last summer, and Mateo took a swig, the burn chasing away the chill. They laughed over shared gripes. Airport security theater, the absurdity of jet lag. But beneath it, Mateo sensed layers. Elias's eyes darkening when talk turned to family. A quick deflection when Mateo asked about a partner. Solo traveler, Elias said, but his fingers tightened on the flask. Then came the whisper. As the train slowed for a rural stop, passengers shuffling like ghosts in the corridor. Mateo had been staring out the window, lost in a memory of Alex's hand on his thigh during a ferry ride to Bainbridge. Elias leaned close, voice a threadbare confession. I've been running from ghosts my whole life, but you look like the one I finally want to chase. Mateo's heart stuttered. The compartment felt smaller, the air thicker. He turned, their faces inches apart. Elias's breath minty from gum chewed to mask the bourbon. What does that even mean? Mateo whispered back, his voice steadier than he felt. Elias hesitated, then pulled back, rubbing his neck. Means, hell, I don't know. Saw you sketching earlier, the way your brow furrowed, like you were pulling worlds out of thin air. Reminded me of this guy I loved once, or thought I did. He paused, eyes flicking to the window. Sorry. Too much too soon. But it wasn't too much. It was a crack in the dam Mateo had built around his chest, water seeping through. They didn't speak for the next hour, the silence companionable, charged. Mateo sketched Elias then. Not his face, but his hands. Calloused fingers splayed on the armrest, veins mapping stories untold. As dusk fell, the train's lights flickered on, casting long shadows. Elias broke the quiet. Prague for the beer gardens or the bridges? Both. And maybe to remember how to breathe. Mateo surprised himself with the honesty. Elias nodded like he understood. Fair. Me too. Though my ghosts are louder than most. They shared a meal from the dining car, soggy sandwiches and overbrewed tea, trading bites and laughs. Elias told a story about a student who'd written a coming-out essay disguised as a book report on Giovanni's room. The class erupting in applause that left him choking up at his desk. Kids these days, Elias said. Braver than we ever were. Mateo shared his own fragments. The first time he'd kissed a boy behind the bleachers at his Tacoma high school. The thrill laced with terror of headlights sweeping the lot. My dad found out later. Didn't speak for a month. Mom bridged it with pasta sauce. Like that fixed everything. Food as forgiveness, Elias murmured. My mom's the same. Pierogies after every fight. Night deepened. The train a cocoon hurtling through black fields dotted with village lights. Passengers dimmed. Snores punctuating the rattle. Mateo dozed fitfully, waking to find Elias's jacket draped over his lap, a quiet gesture that warmed more than the wool. When he stirred, Elias was awake, staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep, Mateo asked softly. Nightmares, Elias admitted. Old habits. They talked then, voices hushed, peeling back edges. Elias confessed to growing up in a conservative pocket of Michigan, where being gay meant whispers and averted eyes. College in Chicago brought freedom, hookups in Boys Town, a boyfriend who taught him to waltz, but graduation scattered them. Last serious thing was 2 years ago. Architect named Theo. We had this loft in Wicker Park, views of the L train rumbling by. Thought it was forever. Mateo felt the echo. What happened? Elias's jaw tightened. He cheated. With my best friend, no less. Found them in our bed one snowstorm night. Packed my shit and drove to Ann Arbor that same hour, chains rattling on the tires. His laugh was bitter. Romantic, right? Ghosts like that don't fade easy. The parallel stung, betrayal's sharp blade, the way it carved out into every future touch. Mateo reached across the aisle, his hand covering Elias's briefly. Skin on skin, electric. Mine was 3 weeks ago. Tech bro with commitment issues. Left me questioning if I even know what love looks like anymore. Elias turned his hand palm up, lacing fingers. Maybe we find out together. Just for Prague. The offer hung, tentative as the first raindrop on glass. Mateo squeezed back, pulse racing. Outside, thunder rumbled, lightning flashing castles on distant hills. The train surged on, carrying them toward a city of spires and secrets, where whispers could rewrite fates. By the time Prague's Hlavní Nádraží loomed, sodium lights bleeding into the pre-dawn gloom, Mateo felt unmoored, adrift in possibility. They disembarked amid bleary-eyed crowds, backpacks slung, the air crisp with the scent of baked bread from nearby stalls. Elias suggested coffee at a corner cafe, to shake off the tracks, and Mateo agreed, their shoulders brushing as they navigated cobblestones slick with mist. The cafe was a nook of velvet booths and brass fixtures, the kind of place Hemingway might have haunted if he'd traded Paris for here. Over black coffee strong as regret, they planned loosely. Charles Bridge at sunrise, a wander through the Jewish quarter, absinthe at a hidden bar in Malastrana. No rush, Elias said, his knee pressing Mateo's under the table. We've got 3 days before my flight back. Mateo's own return was open-ended, a deliberate vagueness. Same, but inside, plans swirled, extend the ticket, chase the spark across borders. As steam curled from their cups, Elias's phone buzzed. He glanced, face clouding. Work email. Principal wants updates on my syllabus redo. Already? You're on sabbatical. Tell that to the district. Elias pocketed it, but the mood shifted, a shadow crossing his features. Mateo recognized it, the tether of responsibility pulling at freedom's edge. They stepped out into the awakening city, trams clanging like bells tolling new chapters. The Vltava glittered under rose-streaked sky, statues on the bridge frozen in eternal poses. Mateo snapped a photo, Elias photobombing with a goofy grin that coaxed one from him too. Laughter bubbled up, light and unforced, the first real one since Seattle. But as they strolled, arm occasionally grazing arm, Mateo's mind wandered back. To Alex's last text, wish you the best, Matt. Really. To Lena's voice note, call when you land. Okay? Don't let some Euro hunk steal your heart without vetting. He hadn't called yet, the time difference an excuse. What would he say? That a train stranger had cracked him open with 6 words? Lunch was at a riverside bistro, goulash steaming in clay pots, dumplings soft as clouds. Elias dove in with gusto, recounting a disastrous attempt at Michigan hot dogs that ended in food poisoning and a vow to master Eastern European cuisine. Mateo sketched the scene on a napkin. Elias mid-bite, sauce on his chin, eyes crinkled in joy. For your portfolio? Elias teased, wiping his mouth. For memory, Matteo replied, folding it carefully. Afternoon led them to Prague Castle, winding paths lined with chestnut trees shedding leaves like confetti. They climbed the towers, breathless, the city sprawling below like a fairy tale etched in stone. At the top, wind whipping, Elias pulled Matteo close against the chill. Beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. But Matteo's gaze was on Elias's profile, the way sunlight gilded his lashes. Their first kiss happened there, impulsive, Elias turning, cupping Matteo's face, lips meeting soft then urgent. Taste of salt and spice, hands fisting flannel, the world narrowing to heartbeat and breath. When they broke, foreheads touching, Elias whispered, "Not chasing ghosts anymore." Matteo believed him. That night, in a pension room overlooking red-tiled roofs, two singles merged by a pushed-together bed. They explored slower, reverent. Fingers tracing scars. Matteo's appendix line from childhood. Elias's faded tattoo of a compass rose on his ribcage, inked after Theo. Points north, Elias explained. But I keep getting lost. Matteo kissed it, murmuring, "Not anymore." Days blurred into a montage. Tram rides to Vicerad Fortress, where they picnicked on rye bread and cheese, feeding each other grapes. A puppet show in Old Town Square, giggling at the strings tangles mirroring their own. Midnight walks along the river, hands intertwined, sharing dreams deferred. Elias's novel about queer pioneers in the Midwest, Matteo's gallery show of urban solitude. But fissures appeared. Elias's phone buzzed more, his replies curt. One evening, over Pilsner Urquell in a cellar tavern, he snapped at a notification. Fucking Theo, texting about shared furniture. Like I want reminders. Matteo tensed. Block him. Can't. Still owe him for that couch. Elias downed his beer, ordering another. The lightness frayed, alcohol loosening tongues. You ever wonder if we're just rebounding? Your ex, my mess. Prague is therapy. The question landed like a slap. Matteo set his glass down. Isn't everything some kind of therapy? But this feels real. Elias's eyes softened. It does. Sorry. Ghosts talking. They made up in bed, bodies a bomb, but doubt seated. Next morning, wandering the Lenin Wall, graffiti murals of peace signs and song lyrics, Matteo pressed. What's really pulling you back to Ann Arbor? Elias hesitated, tracing a painted dove. Family. My sister's kid niece, Riley. She's 10, questioning everything. Bullied at school for her dad's rainbow flag in the yard. I coach her soccer team, show her it's okay to be different. His voice cracked. Can't run forever. Matteo nodded, aching with recognition. Back home, he'd volunteered at a youth center, mentoring kids like the boy who'd drawn him a portrait after coming out. Then don't. But don't leave this behind either. Elias pulled him into a shadowed alley, kissing fierce, as if to seal a pact. Yet the countdown loomed, Elias's flight in 48 hours. They filled it feverishly. A boat cruise on the Vltava, jazz in a smoky club where they slow danced to Coltrane covers, bodies swaying like willows. Confessions deepened, Elias's fear of commitment rooted in his father's abandonment when he was 12, leaving his mom to raise 3 boys on diner tips. Matteo's guilt over never confronting his parents fully, settling for silences over suppers. On their last night, rain lashed the windows of their room, thunder a drumroll for drama. They lay tangled, sweat-cooled, Elias's head on Matteo's chest. Come with me, Elias murmured. To Michigan. See the lakes. Meet Riley. The invitation thrilled, terrified. And then, back to Seattle or we figure it. Long distance first, then closer. Elias lifted his head, eyes earnest. I meant what I said on the train. You're not a ghost. You're the map. Matteo kissed him, sealing it. Sleep came easy, dreams of bridges spanning oceans. But dawn brought fracture. Matteo woke to Elias pacing, phone to ear, voice low and furious. Theo, what the hell? You can't just show up at my sister's like that. Claiming the grill we split? It's done. Silence then. No, I'm not alone. Met someone. Real this time. Matteo sat up, heart swelling, until Elias hung up, face ashen. He said he saw my posts. Prague pics. Wants to talk. Says he made a mistake. The air thinned. And you? Elias sank onto the bed, head in hands. I don't know. Part of me hates him, but we built a life. What if? Don't. Mateo's voice broke. You said I'm the map. You are. Elias reached, but Mateo pulled back. The betrayal. Not Elias's, but the echo of Alex's, surging like bile. But I need time. To think. Time. The word that ended things. Mateo dressed in silence, packing with mechanical precision. I'll head to Berlin. Clear my head too. Elias stood, desperate. Wait, please. This isn't. It is. Mateo zipped his bag, the sound final. Ghosts win sometimes. But mine? I'll chase them alone. He left without a backward glance. Trams blurring through tears. Prague spires mocking his solitude. The train to Berlin was empty. The seat beside him cold. He sketched furiously. Shattered compasses, rain-swept bridges. Hours later, his phone lit. Lena. Home yet? Spill. Not yet. But the ache sharpened into resolve. Betrayal wasn't the end. It was the forge. Berlin greeted him with graffiti-splashed walls and currywurst stands. A cacophony that drowned the hurt. He checked into a Kreuzberg hostel, bunking with backpackers who swapped stories over cheap beer. Days stretched, wandering the East Side Gallery, where Berlin Wall remnants bore kisses from history. A queer film festival screening docs on Stonewall echoes in Europe. Mateo volunteered, projecting films in a makeshift theater, the glow of screens mirroring his inner turmoil. Nights brought dreams of Elias, whispers on trains, hands in rain, but mornings birthed sketches that healed. He drew Berlin's pulse. A drag queen voguing under neon. Two men kissing defiant against Brandenburg Gate. One evening, at a canal-side bar, a local artist, thin, wiry with silver-streaked hair, complimented his notebook. Raw, like you've cracked open. They talked till closing, Finn sharing his own scars. A partner lost to AIDS in the 90s, art as resurrection. Pain's the best teacher, Finn said, clinking glasses. Turns victims to victors. Mateo nodded, the words rooting. He texted Lena a photo of his latest piece. A man stepping from shadows into light. Healing, he captioned. Her reply, proud. Alex who? A week in, impulse struck. He booked a flight home, not to Seattle's gray, but a detour, and Arbor. Not for Elias, but answers. The plane touched down in Detroit, rental car humming Michigan highways lined with amber maples. An arbor unfolded autumnal. College kids in hoodies, the Huron River reflecting fiery leaves. He found Elias's school from a quick search and Arbor Public, English-lit hallway. Heart pounding, Mateo lingered outside after dismissal, watching Elias coach soccer on the field behind. Whistles sharp, encouragement steady. Riley, a freckled spitfire with braids, beaming at his praise. Elias spotted him across the chain link, freezing mid-drill. Post-practice, they met at a diner off State Street. Greasy spoons and pie slices, the Midwest's comfort. Elias slid into the booth, wary. Berlin. Healing. Mateo pushed a napkin sketch across. Elias with Riley, compass mended. Not chasing. Building. Elias traced it, eyes misting. Theo came clean. Full confession, therapy vow. But I told him no. Chose the map. Mateo's breath caught. And now we start slow. Coffee in Seattle? Or here, cider mills and leaf peeping. Laughter broke the tension, genuine. They talked hours, plans tentative, futures sketched like Mateo's art. No grand gestures, just the human work. Forgiveness earned, scars honored. Back in Seattle weeks later, snow dusting the sound, Mateo unpacked not just clothes, but clarity. Lena met him at the airport, hugging fierce. Tell me everything. Everything, he echoed, meaning it. Elias visited come spring. Cherry blossoms framing their first real date. Pike Place fishmongers cheering their handhold. Challenges came. Distances drag, family frictions. Mateo's parents thawing over FaceTime pasta. Elias's sister grilling him on intentions. But they navigated, therapy sessions bridging miles, weekends stolen in neutral Chicago. A year on, Mateo's gallery show debuted. Whispers and Tracks. Pieces born of Prague's promise and pain. Elias stood beside him, hand warm in his, as collectors murmured approval. In the crowd, Alex appeared thinner, eyes kind with regret. Proud of you, Matt. Thanks. No bitterness. Just space. Later, under gallery lights, Elias whispered, not a ghost's echo, but a vow's beginning. Changed everything, that train. Mateo smiled, hazel eyes locking blue. For the better. They walked into Seattle's night, arms linked. The city's hum a soundtrack to healing. Love, Mateo learned, wasn't a destination, but the journey's quiet courage. The whisper that dared you to listen, to stay, to build bridges over broken tracks. In America's vast, flawed heart, amid rains and rivers and relentless reinvention, they found their way home. Not perfect, but profoundly, humanly theirs.